The Mount Enon Missionary Baptist Church with the Northwestern District 2023. And what a blessing it is to be in this segment this evening as we are preparing to present our main stage. And on our main stage tonight, Miss Jean Lark, who is the Dean of Christian Education, also serves as the President of the Women of the OBGC, and many other capacities all across the National Baptist Convention, USA. And we are grateful to you for tuning in, those of you who will watch this live, as well as those of you who will watch this after it will have aired. It is so important that you understand where and why the organizational work, the organized work, the National Baptist Convention, whether it be state convention and otherwise, why they exist. Sister Jean Lark has worked so diligently down through the years, and as a result, she has information that will be helpful to us all to help us to understand and know why certain things take place, why they began, and we'd like to know where we're going. So if you would, I would that you this evening welcome this beautiful woman of God, Miss Jean Lark, if you will, as she comes in her own way.
Good evening. Let me see if I can't get my account to work here. It's not. Why is it that it don't want to do right? I tell you, Pastor. Yeah. And I just had it up. I'm not saying anything. Okay. All right, let me work with it. Because well, again, let me greet you this evening in the matchless name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I want to welcome you to this 100th annual session of the Northwestern Association. To Moderator Mumford and his officers, to President Pruitt and the Congress officers, to President Barbara Chapman, President of the Women's Auxiliary and her officers, and to Layman's President, Deacon Marshall Gray and his officers. The theme this year is reconnecting, using Hebrews 10 and 25. I've been asked the question of what can Northwestern Association do for me? Ask not what Northwestern can do for you, but what you can do for Northwestern as far as kingdom building is concerned. And your connection to a surefire God-filled foundation. You can't reconnect to a foundation if you're not aware of the history. So let me explain. The black church was the cultural cauldron that black people created to combat a system designed to crush their spirits. Collectively and with enormous effort, they refused to allow that to happen. And the culture they created was sublime, awesome, majestic, lofty, glorious, and all points subversive of a larger culture of the enslavement that sought to destroy their humanity. The miracle of the African American survival can be traced directly to the miraculous way that our ancestors reinvented the religion that their masters thought would keep them subservient. Rather, that religion enabled them and their descendants to learn, to grow, to develop, to interpret and reinvent the world in which they were trapped. It enabled them to bide their time, ultimately time for them to fight for their freedom and for us to continue to fight for ours. It also gave them the moral authority to turn the mirror of religion back on their masters and to indicate to the nation for its original sin of allowing their enslavement to build up that city on a hill. In exposing the hypocrisy at the heart of their Christian country, they exhorted successful generations to close the yawning gap between Americans' founding ideals and the reality they had been forced to endure. Who were these people? As the late Reverend Joseph Lowry put it, I don't know whether faith produced them or if they produced the faith, but the two of them belong together. This date registry was from 1758, and briefly writers about the history of the black church in America, this institute was the first source of land ownership for black African slaves in America and is viewed as the reason and the savior of oppressed black people in the United States. Now look at that, you rascal. Not gonna let me do it. I just about don't understand. Satan evidently don't want me to get this message out, because I'm having all kind of problems here. Now, I'm having problems, and I'm not gonna let it stop me. There we go. During the decades of the Southern slavery in America, slave associations were a constant source of concern. To slave owners, for the many members of the society, black religious meetings symbolized the ultimate threat to white existence. Nevertheless, African slaves established and relied heavily on their churches. Religions offered means of a catalyst. Africans retrained their faith in God and found refuge in their churches. However, white society was not always willing to accept the involvement of slaves in Christianity. As one slave recounted, the white folks would come in when the colored people were having prayer meeting and whip every one of them. Most of them thought that when colored people were praying, it was against them. Religious exercise of slaves were closely watched to dictate plans for escape or the insurrection. Black churches showed an air of militancy in the eye of the white American. Insurrections such as that of Nate Turner's in Virginia, born out of religion's inspiration of slaves, horrified white America, understanding the potential end which could result from the religious experience of Africans in Christianity. In African American history, the church has long been at the center of the Black community. It has established itself as a source of Black religion enrichment and secular development. This development is embodied in Christianity, and the term the Black church presents many details of racial and religious lifestyle unique to Black history. In essence, the term the Black church is really a misnomer. It implies that all Black churches share the same aspirations and strategies for creating a cohesive American community. This is not true, and numerous differences among Black communities were reflected within their community churches. Organized politically and spiritually, Black churches were not only given to the teaching of Christianity, but was faithfully relied upon to address the specific issues which affected their members. For many African American Christians, regardless of their denominational differences, Black churches have always represented their religion, community, and home. Scholars repeatedly assert that Black history and Black church history overlap to be virtually identical. One of the first known Black churches in America was created before the American Revolution, which was around 1758, and it was called the African Baptist or the Bluestone Church. This house of worship was founded on Williamsburg Plantation near the Bluestone River in Mecklenburg, Virginia. Africans believed that only adults be baptized by total immersion, and all of that was doctrinally correct. The first African American church of Savannah, Georgia, began in 1777. This is said to be the oldest Black church in North America. Originally called the First Colored Church, the pastoral life of George Leah's preaching is tied to its beginning. And in 1787, Blacks in Philadelphia organized the first African society. The first organized African American society, and Aberstone Jones and Richard Allen were elected as overseers. They established contact and created relationship with similar Black groups in other cities. 5 years later, the society began to build church membership and dedicated in 1794. The African Church applied for membership in the Episcopal Diocese of Pennsylvania. The end of the Confederacy signaled freedom for millions of Southern Black slaves and prompted the emancipation of the Black church. This started the emergence of the Black church as a separate institute. Many Black churches discreetly doubled as a station for the Underground Railroad. At the time, white Southerners still sought to maintain control over African American worship for religious and social reasons. Such service typically emphasized the responsibility of the slave to be obedient and tried to prove it with biblical justification. Justification for Blacks being in bondage. Slaves had no voice in church affairs. and were relegated to the rear of the church or the gallery as spectators rather than full congregation members. After the Emancipation Proclamation, black churches became virtually the only place for African Americans to find refuge. Blacks moved away from the hush harbors they retreated to for solace as slaves. During this time, a church separation petition was filed by 38 black members of the predominantly white Fairfield Baptist Church in North Cumberland County, Virginia. In 1867, referring to the new political and social status of blacks, the petitioners said they wanted a place to themselves where we could organize and promote our mutual good, and suggested a separate church. Organization as a possible way. A month later, the white members of the church unanimously succeeded to petition the request, setting the stage for the creation of the all-black Shiloh Baptist Church. Once established, black churches spread rapidly throughout the South. The black churches led in the proliferation, and the 1800s ushered in many milestones built on black church foundation. Other new churches also emerged because of the missionary activities of black ministers. The Reverend Alexander Betts is a former South Carolina slave, organized more than 40 Baptist churches between 1865 and his death in 1895. 19th century black churches ministered to the needs of the soul and served a host of secular functions, which placed them squarely in the center of black social life. Church buildings doubled as community meeting centers and schools until permanent structures could be built. During Reconstruction, they served as political halls. The black church provided visitor shelters and temporary community theater and concert halls, where religion and secular plays and programs presented in a blurring of spiritual and social functions. Church members provided care for the sick or the incapacitated and financial assistance to students bound for college. They also sponsored virtually all the fraternal lodges that emerged in the 19th century in the South. As radically motivated, violence and terrorism ran rapid across the country. Black churches were staunch in their resistance. And in 1886, black organized the National Baptist Convention to continue to reduce the influence of the white national bodies among blacks. As the number of the black churches grew, they met regularly in regional conventions that evolved into statewide and national organizations. By 1895, the various Baptist associations had formed, and the National Baptist Convention of America, representing 3 million black Baptists, primarily in the South. The Ohio Baptist General Convention, incorporated as we're known today, began as the Ohio Baptist Convention Colored in 1896. There were 3 associations that formed early, namely Providence in 1834, Eastern Union in 1872, and Western Union also in the same year. Each association formed as an anti-slavery missionary Baptist association after the Negro ministers were expelled from the Tea Valley Association. In 1896, more than 2,000 clergy attended a meeting in Atlanta, Georgia. the three largest conventions of the day: the Baptist Foreign Missionary Convention, the American National Baptist Convention, the National Baptist Educational Convention merged to form the National Baptist Convention of the USA of America. This brought both Northern and Southern Black Baptist churches together. Among the delegates was Reverend A.D. Williams, pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church and grandfather of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. The more involved Black churches became inspiring against the racial intolerance and violence targeted against them, the more the churches and their members were pushed within the church. The Presbyterian, the Episcopalians also saw the division of their members into white and Black denominations, with each of the two Black churches having 100,000 members by the 1900s. And in 1908, the Christian Index published the Colored Methodist Bishops' Appeal to White America. In their statement, church occurring across the country denouncing Jim Crow laws and terrorizing wages against Blacks and imploring the country to suppress the spread of anti-Black violence. As anti-Black terrorism proliferated into the 20th century, Black churches grew increasingly vehement in their call for the castration of racial violence. Also in September of 1915, the National Baptist Convention took a stand on all of the Jim Crow laws. The Northwestern Ohio Missionary Baptist Association, we began in 1913. It had two sub-districts. First district consists of Toledo, Lima, and Fremont. Second district consists of Dayton, Middletown, and Troy. The last association to form the frame of the 5 associations to make up the Ohio Baptist General Convention. Between World War I and World War II, the Black church continued to be not only an area of social and political life for Black leaders, it had a political meaning for the masses. Although they were denied the right to vote in American community, within their churches, they could vote and engage in electing their officers, the election of bishops, other officers, and the representative to the convention had been a severe activity for the masses of the Blacks in America. Almost a century ago, the Black church was organized for social and political activity, a center for economic development and growth. A microcosm of the larger society, Black churches provided an environment free of oppression and racism for African Americans. In Black churches, African Americans were constantly exposed to social, political, and economic opportunities that all members could seek and have equally. 7 major historic denominations: the African Methodist Episcopal, the AME Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Zion, the AME Zion Church, the Christian Methodist Episcopal, the CME Church, the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated, the National Baptist Convention of America Unincorporated, the Progressive National Baptist Convention, PNBC, and the Church of God in Christ, COGI, all comprising the Black churches. In the 21st century, the convention movement of the African American Baptist churches has undergone changes, and several organizations remain important to African American life. The Black church is also at the crossroads due to white flight, regentrification, and systematic capitalism. The black church has historically become a source of hope and strength for the African American community. When Jesus established the foundation of the church, he had in mind a strong body where members connected to each other. Looking at the God-given template of the church, it was always meant to be a community that one could become a part of. Church hopping has become more common nowadays. The Christian faith is now easily thought of to be like a fast food chain that you can conveniently choose from depending on what flavor you're looking for that particular day. But the church was not meant to be a flavor of the day affair. It is meant to be a community. And in a community, people are connected here for 4 benefits they can get from being a part of a church community. We're looking for growth. Being part of the church community brings edification, correction, and encouragement, and it ultimately leads to stronger and more mature Christians. Hebrews 10:25 states, "Not forsaking our own assembly together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, all the more as you see the day drawing near." We grow best when we grow alongside one another and find those who can lead, guide, counsel, and pray for us and our relationship with God. The second part of that community is purpose. Deep inside, we all want to be a part of something bigger than us. When we become a part of a Christian community, this is exactly what has happened. In a church community, we serve a purpose, and in serving that purpose, we grow in significance and belongingness. 1 Corinthians 12:12-30 likens the church community to a body where every member plays a specific role. When we become a part of a church community, we're giving a role to play. I hope we don't look at this as a requirement, but rather as an opportunity to put the gifts that God had given us, that he's brought into life. The last one is fun and fellowship. Acts 2:42 tells us, "And they devoted themselves to the apostles, teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and prayer." Fellowship, breaking of bread, praying and learning more about God together was never meant to be boring. It was meant to be fun, and we can enjoy this opportunity as being part of a church community. Church is not about rituals, practice, rites. It is primarily about enjoying a relationship with our loving God and then enjoying fellowship with fellow believers. And as I end, ask not what Northwestern can do for you. Ask what you can do for Northwestern. Thank you.
Come on, let's give Miss Jean Locke a hand for the information that has been provided for this season. We're so grateful to you for your wisdom. Thank you so much for your guidance. We're currently live, and we're grateful to be so. For so long, we've served throughout this season of COVID, and a lot of people have become accustomed to being able to witness services and worship, and what a better way to receive information about things that are needed, things that we'd like to know about our church, about the organized work, and all of the above. And she just unfolded so many pieces in such a short time, and we're very grateful to you. So if you would also recognize that in the church, we are responsible, we're accountable for making sure that all things are taught. All across the board, he says, make for certain that all things are taught from every capacity of life. And as a result, we've invited our health and wellness team to come and share with you some information. We have persons who are solidly planted in the medical field. These are bona fide persons, well educated, well appreciated, especially by us here at the Mount Enon Church and this city and surrounding areas. And I want them to come and share with you information about some of the things that we do at the Mount Enon Church and abroad, as our health and wellness team provides a yearly a conference, if you will, where we get together, talk about, discuss all the elements of health and wellness. Not just that, but once a month in our church, we are fortunate to come dressed in our workout clothes, and we work out in the worship service. I know I just said something that made some people cringe, and they was like, well, Lord, how does that work? Well, I want them to come and tell you how we do that, because on a regular basis, it need be understood that a lot of people do not experience, and it's unfortunate, even in our congregation, that they don't experience any exercise until that Sunday. I just said something to you. They don't even experience exercise, watch this, until that Sunday. Watch this, we got some other amazing things coming behind us, so I'm gonna loose Miss Leona Gray. She works in so many capacities. You're gonna see her face again, but she and her team are gonna come and share with you some information about how we have developed our health and wellness team here at the Mount Enon Church. They are well connected to the community, and many other things take place in our church. They're also going to help you to understand the importance of CPR, as well as making sure that you know where you should get that training, because somebody in your church, and I'm requiring that all of our leaders in the Mount Enon Church become certified CPR. If you will, please let's welcome this evening Miss Leona Gray.
There we go. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is such a wonderful pleasure to be able to, and such a blessing to be able to bring to you something that we find to be quite unique to churches. We have an amazing health and wellness ministry. I happen to be the director, by the grace of God, of that ministry, and I have a lot of professional people, health professions, people that work with us. So we have a few moments, so I'd like to give you a history on how we began. Briefly, our mission is to spiritually energize and motivate people to practice their faith and serve God through healthy lifestyles while having behavioral changes and understanding that our bodies don't belong to us. They are temples. They're temples of the Holy Spirit, and you will find that in 1 Corinthians. We are a faith-based ministry that, believe it or not, started way back in the 1990s. And our first facilitator was Nurse Dolores Thurman, who had a grant, and she worked with several community leaders, and she brought some health initiatives to that. And shortly after that, Dr. Jeanette Robinson arrived from Texas, I believe, and she introduced us to a fitness component to our health and wellness. which several of us have been certified. We offer classes. We offer all types of things within this ministry. For over 20 years, our ministry consists of dedicated members, we have several of them in the audience, that help plan and organize a number of our events. We have provided weekly exercises. We organize health fairs, seminars on health disparities, such as heart disease, dementia, high blood pressure, diabetes, and all of those sorts of things. We've even offered, believe it or not, healthy cooking in a crock pot. So if you've never had an opportunity to cook health foods in a crock pot, we will be hosting one of those again probably later this year. And what's a blessing of that, you get a free crock pot when you come to that. So she'll even teach you how to bake in a crock pot, which is quite fascinating. And we also have monthly blood pressures, which we will be demonstrating over to my left, that we offer free. Anybody that wants to take a blood pressure will have it by our health professions, and they will explain to you or advise you what you should do at that point. As it is told, and Dr. Matthews will probably speak on this, there is a high percentage of us in the African American community that have hypertension and really don't know their numbers, and it's extremely important to know your numbers. And some of them can't even afford their medication. So those are some of the things that we work toward to change. When Pastor Pruitt came on, he invited a pastor from out of state to speak. This particular pastor happened to have a similar ministry such as ours, and he introduced us to Sunday worship fitness class. And we adopted that. I'll tell you though, Pastor was so energized and excited about having this once a month fitness session. It was difficult. It was difficult to get it going. It was difficult to get it motivated. I coined it moving to win because I believe if you move your bodies continuously on a regular basis, even if you just walk, it's a good health initiative. You have to build your body. You have to build your muscles to stay strong, and you have to eat right and drink a lot of water. There's a lot of things that come along with that. Moving to Win is pretty much a 15-minute session once a month, every fourth Sunday, as I said, and we dress down. It's a dress down day. You get to wear your blue jeans, you get to wear your tennis shoes, you get to wear whatever you would like to wear that's comfortable. And within that session, Dr. Karen, who will be coming up shortly after she introduced a medical moment. She talks about all the different health disparities that are in the African American community, and she gives tips and advice on what you can do about that. And then after that, we have a low-impact exercise session, and if time permits, I will just do a brief demonstration on just a stretch component to that. It's about 10 minutes. We move, we exercise, we laugh, we joke, we sweat, all those things that come along with it. And so again, as I said, to my left, I have Sister Toddy, who will be presenting her CPR. She's going to come up and speak about CPR and the importance of that. And I have Sister Persons, who will be giving blood pressures, should you want to have your blood pressure taken tonight. Now, perhaps after we do a little motivation, stomp our feet, clap our hands, smile, you might want to check your blood pressure. So now, without further ado, I thank you for being here. I thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions about how you can start one of these health initiatives, moving to win, exercise programs, fitness programs within your church or in your community, I'm happy to talk to you about it and how we began. And I can show you some persons, inform you of some persons that could certify you for that. Dr. Matthews will be coming up, and she will be speaking on the vaccines that we should be taking, because COVID is coming back around again, and dental health. And after her, Sister Toddy will be coming up to speak on CPR and AED. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. Are you all able to hear me? Okay. First of all, I want to applaud you because you are here, and I'm assuming you're here because you're concerned about yourself and your health. So I learned a lot during COVID, and one of the things that happened during COVID is that the life expectancy of African Americans went down over 2.5 years. And that did not happen with other ethnicities. As you probably already know, common conditions like cardiovascular disease, heart disease, diabetes, elevated blood pressure, they are all present at a much higher rate in African Americans compared with the Caucasian population. So I want to focus on some things that maybe you don't typically hear from your regular doctor or nurse practitioner or PA. First, I want to give you an easy way of remembering certain numbers you should know. And I like to call the ABCs and then add a D, and then I'm going to add another letter. So for those of you who may have taken CPR a while back, you may have thought of ABC as airway, breathing, and circulation. But ABC can also be used to remind you that you should know about your A1C. Has anyone ever heard of that before? That's a number that you can know to see where you are at on the blood sugar spectrum. We definitely want everyone below 6.4, okay? Anything above 5.7 is considered pre-diabetes, and 6.5 or above is diabetes. B, for blood pressure, the cutoff has changed over the years, but definitely you don't want that top number greater than 140. You don't want that bottom number higher than 90. C, for cholesterol, total cholesterol is probably the easiest one to remember, and you definitely want that below 200. And then I'm going to throw something out there, D. Many of you may think of D as in diet, and that is important, but also I'm going to ask you to remember D as in dentist, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. And then I'm going to throw in some information about vaccines. We all want to be able to enjoy our lives, and there are certain pillars that will help us do that. Most of us know that we should probably move, get as much exercise as we can, exercise that works for us. Walking is a good exercise. We all know that we should eat a healthy diet with plenty of fruits and vegetables. We all know that we ought to get some restorative good night's sleep. A lot of us find that difficult to do, me included. Here's another one that I'm going to throw out there because that's important. Try to minimize stress. Stress has been known to be associated with heart disease, development of infection because it suppresses the immune system, and also elevation of blood pressure. Another thing that we often don't talk about is avoidance of substances that are bad for you, excessive drinking, illicit drugs. And a final one that we don't often discuss, but it's important that I mention because I want this to be about prevention, keeping a social connection, making sure that you have family, friends, relatives, someone that you can go and speak with, because studies show that if you have someone that you can outreach to and maintain a good social connection, that you will have a healthier lifestyle. So let's get back to the ABCDs and talk about the D, the dentist. How many of you have been to a dentist within the last year? I'm impressed. I knew you all were impressive by being here. Studies have shown that poor oral health can lead to other things like heart disease and infectious disease. And people may wonder, how is that possible? Well, believe it or not, there is a body-mouth connection. A dentist can look into your mouth and look at the health of your gums, determine if you have gingivitis or periodontitis, which is a really severe form of gingivitis that involves perhaps some recession of the gums and some bone disease. By noticing that, you are at an increased risk for a heart attack. So when you go to the dentist, it's not simply to get pearly whites. It's not simply to diagnose a cavity or to pull a tooth or to do a root canal. It's to determine if you have these other findings that may make it difficult to fight off infection. There's been a lot of discussion about inflammation, swelling, redness, and inflammation can be a portal to disease, both cardiovascular disease and infectious disease. So we want to make sure that when we think about those ABCDs, that D not only includes diet, but it includes the dentist. So I was blessed to have a great military career. I was in the Air Force for over 30 years, and one thing they were very good at doing is they were good at checking our teeth at least once or twice a year, and they were good at making sure we had all of our vaccines. So that is a perfect segue for me to talk about why vaccines are important. First of all, let me say that I respect your autonomy. So what does that mean? That means every individual has the right to make their own mind up about whether or not they want to take a vaccine. So what does that mean for me as a medical healthcare professional? Well, I believe it is my job to let you know as much information as possible so you can make that decision on your own. I obviously want everyone to spend a long, healthy, productive life. And a big part of that is not just treating diseases after they happen, but helping to prevent them from happening in the first place. So that's where the vaccines come in, because by taking certain vaccines, you can prevent not only some simple inconvenient diseases, but you can prevent some potentially diseases that can be lethal. So I'm going to talk about something that you may have seen on the commercial. I'm not going to review all of the vaccines that adults should have. I do have some handouts and some grids and some paperwork, and I will make them available someplace in the sanctuary, so you're welcome to have that. But I'm going to talk about one vaccine that if it does nothing else, it will make your life a lot more comfortable. Who has ever heard of shingles? All right. Who knows of anyone who has had shingles? Okay, great. So I'm using this as an example because let me tell you that as a physician, this is one of the most painful conditions that I have seen. I'm not exaggerating. I have seen grown men nearly cry from the discomfort and the pain. What is shingles? I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but basically, if you've had chickenpox in the past, the virus is still kind of hiding around in your body and nerves, and they can be reactivated. Usually that's in people who are over the age of 50. So the shingles vaccine, people who are over the age of 50 are eligible to get it, and it is recommended that if you're over the age of 60 that you get it. So I've had my shingles vaccine, even though now it is a 2-dose vaccine, because it will prevent you from about 3 to 4 weeks of painful cluster blisters that may keep you from spending quality time with your family, that may keep you from missing work. So that is just one example. And again, when people go to their family physician, their nurse practitioner, their PA, they think of getting their blood pressure checked. They may think of getting their blood sugar checked. They may think of getting a mammogram. And those are all important things. But a lot of times adults don't think of, okay, I need to ask my doctor, what immunizations do I need? And if you go to a family physician or an internist who is used to doing very comprehensive care, hopefully he or she will tell you what vaccines you need. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about another vaccine. It's the diphtheria, and it's usually in a vaccine with tetanus and pertussis. And you may have seen the article on the TV about a grandmother who turns into a wolf, and she's got this cough, and she's visiting her grandkids. Well, when you get vaccines, it's not so that you don't get sick. We don't want you to get whooping cough and pass it on to a granddaughter or grandson that you're visiting. So yes, the vaccine is to keep you from getting whooping cough, but it's also designed to keep you from giving it to your loved ones, to the small children that you may need to visit, okay? So those are two of the vaccines that I've chosen to highlight. And I'm gonna close with two other vaccines that sometimes cause a lot of controversy: the seasonal flu vaccine and the COVID-19 vaccine. So, some people are blessed and they rarely get a cold, or maybe they've never had the flu or flu symptoms in their life. But the older you get, the less robust your immune system is. So a 50-year-old, then a 60-year-old, then 65 and 70, they may be healthy and active, but the status of their immune system isn't what we would expect to see in a 25-year-old, a 35-year-old, or 45-year-old. So the vaccines, seasonal flu vaccine and COVID-19, which is a type of virus, those viruses are designed to help build immunity. It's not natural immunity, because if you didn't get the actual seasonal flu that year, or if you didn't get the COVID-19 vaccine, you don't have the natural immunity, but the vaccines are designed to give you the immunity by getting the vaccine. I encourage you to have a dialogue with your medical doctor, nurse practitioner, PA, and you notice I use all of these individuals because a person that you trust and you go to may not be a doctor. It might be a very smart, experienced nurse practitioner who's got excellent bedside manner, who takes the time to explain to you the rationale behind taking these vaccines. So I'm going to have some information again on tables. Feel free to come by and look at the information. Feel free to grab me if you see me walking around. I'm the one with the stethoscope and the white coat, so I'm standing out. And again, I wanted to give you just enough information to whet your appetite and to understand that prevention is also a key component to healthcare, not just a reactive response after you've been diagnosed with hypertension or diabetes, but for the most part, these vaccines are designed to help prevent diseases. So as adults, there are times when perhaps you had a prior vaccine and now you're due for another one. So again, I've got a grid, a list of vaccines for adults. If you want to take that, it might be a great avenue for discussion when you go see your doctor in the future, and you can say, hey doc, I was at Mount Enon and they gave me some great information about some vaccines that I need to take. Can you tell me, here's some vaccines listed on this sheet. Let me know what vaccines that you think might be good for me. And that's a beginning, I think, of a great dialogue and a great relationship between you as a patient who has the level of autonomy and empowerment to be able to ask those questions. And don't be afraid. You should not be afraid to ask questions. The person who asks more questions, believe it or not, gets better care. Let me say that again. A patient who asks more questions of their medical provider gets better care because you've put individuals on notice that you're alert, you are informed, and that you are empowered, and that you care about your health care. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I came to talk to you today about cardiopulmonary resuscitation. You all may know it as CPR. There are some things that some people may think about and say, oh, it's the same thing, but I'm getting ready to tell you the difference between the cardiac arrest and a heart attack. Cardiac arrest is the abrupt loss of heart function in a person who may or may not have been diagnosed with heart disease. It can come on suddenly or in the wake of other symptoms. Cardiac arrest is often fatal if appropriate steps aren't taken immediately. So you may ask, is a heart attack the same as cardiac arrest? And that answer is no. Heart attack is often mistakenly described as cardiac arrest. While a heart attack may cause cardiac arrest, the two aren't the same. So heart attacks are caused by a blockage that stops blood flow to the heart. A heart attack refers to the death of heart muscle tissue due to the loss of blood supply. It's a circulation problem. A heart attack is quite serious and sometimes fatal. So by contrast, cardiac arrest is caused when the heart's electrical system malfunctions. The heart stops beating properly, the heart's pumping function is arrested or stopped. In cardiac arrest, death can result quickly if proper steps aren't taken immediately. Cardiac arrest may be reversed if CPR is performed and a defibrillator shocks the heart and restores a normal heart rhythm within a few minutes. So each year in the United States, more than 350,000 people experience sudden cardiac arrest outside of a hospital setting. This is according to the American Heart Association. So the effect on witnesses is not only tremendous, but far-reaching. Whether a cardiac arrest happens on national television or not, regarding cardiac arrest survivorship, it doesn't just happen to the individual. It happens to their family, friends, or lay rescuers who may be just in the area. It affects those who take action, those who don't, and those who worry that they could have done more. So some of you may have seen when Damar Hamlin heart stopped, millions held their breath. It was a Monday night in Cincinnati. The 24-year-old football player for the Buffalo Bills had a cardiac arrest after making a tackle. In the packed stadium, thousands watched medical workers perform CPR and use an automated external defibrillator to restore his heartbeat. Players and coaches hugged, wept, and prayed as he was taken away in an ambulance. So some may worry about causing trauma or may have other fears, but none of this should ever dissuade anybody from attempting CPR. If you have a legal question about providing first aid, you should know that all states have Good Samaritan laws that protect anyone who gives first aid and CPR. The laws differ from state to state, so check the laws in your area. Anybody trained or not trained can help save a life. According to the American Heart Association, you can perform CPR on a teen or adult by pushing hard and fast in the center of the chest for 100 to 100 compressions per minute. 911 operators can also guide rescuers through CPR. You can contact your local fire department regarding CPR training and pricing. You can also look at the American Heart and the American Red Cross websites. Search for CPR classes, then enter your address or your city. A list should populate for nearby courses, including the company name, location, and pricing. You can also stop by my table over there and get my business card and the link to my website to join a future class that I'll be offering. So let's all remember the importance of the AEDs in facilities. AEDs is a lightweight portable device to detect abnormal cardiac rhythms requiring treatment. An AED can deliver an electrical shock to restore the rhythm. AEDs should be in a high traffic area where most people can see and access them in an emergency. So where can your church or facility buy an AED if you don't have one? Well, I'll tell you. You can log on to the American Red Cross website and click on the link to purchase AED at a competitive price to fit your needs and stay within your budget. So that's just one place that you can actually look. There's plenty more if you look on Google it. So for the Mount Enon people, where is the AED located in Mount Enon? Anybody who took our class or anybody that knows where is the AED located here in Mount Enon? Mr. Marshall? All right. Did you hear that? So if you go down these stairs here, right out this door, right down the stairs into that entrance of the foyer there is the AED right there on the wall. So if you pass the church robes, that means you went too far. Okay? All right. And what is the first thing that you should do when you, the AED arrives on the scene? What is the first thing you do? Anybody can answer that. What'd you say? Turn it on. You remember that from the class? AED arrives on the scene, first thing you do is turn it on. All right. So remember, the best thing you can do is something. So I know the ones who taken my class know this. I always say, the best thing you can do is something. The worst thing you can do is nothing. When a person's heart stops suddenly, receiving CPR can double or even triple the chances of survival. We know the power of lay rescue or CPR and responses regarding cardiac arrest and their outcomes. So for me and my company at Tidy CPR Heart Savers, our goal is to always try and have more people trained and more people prepared to act. May God bless you and keep you.
Now, that is some of the information that you receive throughout the year as we have different seminars and different conversations. As again I had said, on every fourth Sunday, we have this as part of our worship service, and Dr. Karen provides medical moments to each of us. And then my goal is to teach you and show you ways to move, ways that are low impact, ways that are healthy for you, because it's vitally important to always move, no matter how you do it. You can sit on the couch and do some of the exercises that I show. You can stand up. You can use a walker. We've had people in walkers do some of these exercises. I've been teaching, I've been instructing aerobics for nearly 24 years. I enjoy it, but it's time to retire. I see one of my participants in the audience. So I am just going to do a demonstration, and you are welcome. You're welcome to follow along. You can sit. It's a nice tempo. You can sit in your chairs, and march your feet to the beat. You can stretch with me. It's going to basically be stretch, but I have to warm you up just a little bit, because you never stretch your muscles without warming up just a little bit. Now let me just tell you just something awesome that God does, and he constantly surprises me. I'm just always in awe of what he does. I usually have a wellness t-shirt. We have wellness shirts that have our name on it. And today a week ago, I decided I didn't want to wear that. So I just pulled this out my closet, put it on, and then I remembered the song that I had given to them to play, and it's standing on your promises. Isn't God remarkable? Isn't it amazing how he just pulls and ties things together? You're just in awe. You're just like, Lord, how did you? Well, you knew before me, so here we are. And we're going to stand on his promises that he promised to us as we move our bodies, because he promised not to hurt us. So I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to give you a brief demonstration of what we do. Anybody want to stand up? You're welcome to. If not, you can tap your feet. All righty. March, just briefly, march your feet. Some of us have dresses on and it's difficult, but you can stay in your chair and march and march.
So I'm saying, I pray that you hear me saying, I'm being patient, waiting.
I try to sing too, y'all.
You do what you say you'll do.
See? Come on.
Come on, y'all. Saying, I'm being patient.
Repetitive move.
To hear.
Just repetitive move.
Yes. Lord, I'm holding, yes, I'm holding, yes.
His promise.
Holding.
His promise.
You made.
Breathe in.
Yeah.
Deep breaths in. You fill up your lungs. And release. You breathe through your nose and out through your mouth. Promise. And mark. And tap, whatever you're doing. Now we're going to do a right tap. Those that are sitting in a chair, you can do a right tap.
What you promised me.
4, 3, 2, 1. Right tap. Tap. Very simple.
I still believe it. Come on.
How y'all feel?
I want to say, let's believe in faith now. I will receive it.
You want to receive his promises?
I will receive it. I will receive it.
Good job.
Lord, I'm ready.
Lord, I'm ready.
Oh, so ready.
Yes, I'm ready. Receive it.
I will receive
It's just repetitive moves, but you're moving your body.
it.
Working those muscles. You're warming up that temple.
Lord, I'm ready.
Lord, I'm ready.
Oh, so ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's sing.
Take it back to a march
Receive the promises of God.
and breathe in and release.
You believe that you're going to receive it.
Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Breathe in again. Fill up those lungs. It's yours. It's yours. It's yours. I will receive it. Will you? Lord, I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. I will receive it. Will you receive it? Yeah. Take care of those temples that God gave to you. They're temporary. We don't have them when we go to heaven, but we have them now. And it's our goal to continue to take care of them. And look as beautiful as you look out here. Breathe in one more time. And release. I'm ready. Breathe in again. And then we want to stretch it just a little bit. Stretch to the right. And to the left. And you do a front stretch to stretch out the back, quads, thighs. And just always be ready for when the Lord calls you to do his work. Take care of those temples. Thank you.
Wow. Now, wasn't that exciting? All right. Now, again, I don't want you to pass judgment too soon, because you do know who's in charge of the temple, right? This temple being the temple of the Holy Spirit, you are in charge of that temple. And as a result, he wants us to care for our temple, right? Am I right? All right, so I don't think that we've done anything that's going to desecrate, or, you know what I'm saying, or to disappoint God, if you will. All right? So I'd like to share with you what's coming. We kind of mimic this time from story time. We wanted to do something similar so that we could have the conversations necessary to accommodate some of the questions that may be in your minds and your hearts. First of all, with Sister Jean, with the fact that there are a lot of people who say, well, why is the association even necessary, right? Or why do we do this? It just seems like they just get together and go through traditional concepts and whatnot, and she gave us the reason and rationale why these things have ignited. And as a result, we should take to heart that we come together for learning and for fellowship and for strengthening each other, sharing ideas, right? And in doing so, we have the ability to grow and cultivate grounds that will enhance the kingdom. More importantly, perhaps you're here today and you have questions. We got about 10 minutes, I think. I got 10 minutes left. If you got questions for Sister Jean, I'm going to invite her back to the stage. If you got questions for Dr. Karen, Miss Leona, Sister Toddy, either of them, I'm going to invite them back or take the microphone to them so that those questions can be answered. And don't feel shy. There aren't any dumb questions. There aren't any stupid questions. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand. We'd be glad to answer them. And those of you who are online, unfortunately, if you're not live at this point, we don't see your comments after we will have gone off of this broadcast. All right? So any questions? All right. Yes, hold on 1 second so they can hear you too. Good job. 1 sec.
Teacher, for this lesson on the history, information that you were teaching on history, where did you get that from, and how can we get that information?
I can share with you what I've already pulled together. And the information came from various books that were written regarding the black church, the history of the black church. And if you would like, again, I can send you what I've coordinated together for the history of the black churches. Thank you.
In other words, she's saying it's not just one resource. There are many and multiple resources that she has gathered, and she can provide them for you. And if perhaps you're watching on live, just put your email in the comment section, or inbox us if you don't want it to be public, and we will make sure that you're accommodated. Anybody else? No stupid questions. Sure.
I forgot your name, Karen. Dr. Matthews, as far as the vaccine and what are they expecting coming up in September and this coming winter, are they forecasting anything?
The good news is that they've identified a dominant variant. The thing about the COVID-19 virus in the past is that for a while we were playing catch up because there's so many variants, and I think I personally ended up getting 4 or 5 shots. So they needed to study and get an idea of what variant should be the predominant goal of addressing with the vaccine. The other thing that is being looked at is that, in general, people don't like to get shots. You can get a flu shot, and you can get a COVID-19 shot, and you can probably get a couple other shots together with those. But if you want to encourage someone to get vaccines during the flu season, wouldn't it be great if you can combine a seasonal flu vaccine and a COVID vaccine? And I believe that there is going to be a potential for that. Ideally, that's what I'm waiting for. There's something to timing to vaccines. In general, seasonal flu takes place late August, so we're heading towards that time, late August, all the way through mid-May. So it's a long course. And most people get the vaccine, and it's recommended that you get the vaccine sometime in that late September to mid-November time frame. And that would also be ideal for the COVID vaccine. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Anybody else? Got a few more minutes, and we'll prepare for departure. All right. Yes. Hold on one second. Say it loud.
Are we supposed to get another COVID vaccine? I think I done had most all of mine. Dr. Matthews?
Well, again, the great thing about having gone through the pandemic is that there appears to be a lot of both natural immunity, meaning immunity you get from having had the disease, and also immunity from having gotten several COVID-19 vaccines. But they are looking at an additional one. I, for one, am waiting until the fall time frame, and ideally, if they can combine seasonal flu with the COVID-19 vaccine, I think that would be a great combination. So, you know, at one point they were saying that if 6 to 8 months has gone by and you haven't gotten the latest booster, then you need to get another one. Well, now we want to make sure that people get a booster that's going to be reactive to the variant that's out there.
So, again, guys, let me tell you something. We are fortunate to have Dr. Karen in close proximity. Everybody doesn't have that pleasure and that blessing. So, again, you ask the questions that are necessary so you can help some of your brothers and sisters in your local church. As you go back into the Sunday school class, you've heard questions asked. You're able to answer them based on the information that you've gained and not pass out false information. All right? Does that make sense? So don't feel bad. We need to. Now, next time we do this, watch this. Tomorrow's presentation for this segment is going to be mental health. All right? And every last one of us needs to be in that segment as well. When it comes to our health, when it comes to our history, even, we need to know it, right? But most definitely mental health, because I had to acknowledge, I had to admit that I was experiencing some mental issues from having gone through COVID and preaching through all of that stuff. And you've lived through it, but I'm talking about, can you imagine seeing 20, 30 caskets? Y'all listening to what I'm talking about? Having to go to services when you were locked up in your homes. We were out there at the cemetery with a speaker and a microphone trying to bury people. Not necessarily with COVID, all of them, but I mean just challenging, right? And going through some very, very, very challenging things. And the young lady that came with us, Dr. Carmela Daniels, is it? She came last year, and we were at Freedom Faith, and I'm telling you, the young lady provided such amazing information that the men in the crowd, older gentlemen, were pulling on her because they too had experienced moments in their lives where they were trying to hash out those mental issues or whatnot. So invite somebody tomorrow to come out. 10 o'clock, we're going to kick off, okay? And she's not first, so that's at 5 o'clock. But at 10 o'clock, we're going to have the Leadership Advancement Models Beyond the Sanctuary in one class. Dr. Devin West is going to be teaching that class. We also have after the 10 to 11:45, we'll have Brother Marshall Gray is going to come and provide his address, and we don't want him to come to an empty church. I know it's time consuming, and you see me walking back and forth. I'm trying to multitask and all the above. Our president is here tonight, and we want you to come out and share. But we also, and I got ahead of myself, but we also have our regular classes, our layman's class, our pastors and ministers class, and this leadership and empowerment class is a class that others can take. And of course, our women's class, and I'm not sure who's on for our women. Miss Mary Wallace, who's on for our women tomorrow? Sandra Mundy, Dr. Sandra Mundy. Watch this, you don't want to miss it. She's going to come and make presentations on the morrow, and we'll be able to be in our classroom settings. All you have to do is just go look at the picture on the door, and they'll be listed there, and you won't have to come up the steps. But we will come into the sanctuary for the address, the annual address for Brother Marshall Gray, the layman's, and then at 7 o'clock, we will have our own moderator's address at 7 o'clock p.m. tomorrow evening, okay? All right, we see Brother Perry Harris waiting patiently to bring his babies into the services for their 7 o'clock presentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out of the way. If there aren't any other questions, give you an opportunity. I think they may have some snacks over there. And if perhaps they don't, I'll gladly cook you something real quickly. And you will most definitely need to see the doctor after I will have completed that work. Amen. And Sister Persons only bought me 2 pieces of that blessed pound cake. So am I telling something she ain't supposed to know? No, ma'am. She will not get a piece of this one. So, She made that yesterday. So my wife ate those other pieces that you bought, so she won't get one of these in Jesus' name. Say amen. All right? I promise it won't make it home. I'm telling you. All right, so guys, thank you so much. Miss Leona and the team, thank you. Come on, let's celebrate them. Miss Jean Lark, thank you so much. To our dean, we love you, and we thank you so much, guys, for your presentations, and thank you all for being here with us. Our youth is getting ready to come before us, and again, like I say, you can go and take your break, get you some refreshments, and all of the above, okay? Anybody need some water, I'll get you some water and all the above. Yes, please, if you guys don't mind. As we close out, can you close out the session for me on the live stream? Thanks, guys, again for coming in. Northwestern District 2023 annual session. Blessings and peace. Do you guys mind coming and take a picture with me, please?